When did food become complicated? Why did it become so hard to know what we should be eating, to feel good and to be well? Dairy, is it good or bad? Eggs, are they dangerous sources of cholesterol, or are they essential sources of nutrients that we need? Should we be avoiding gluten? Nah, sugar's worse, right? Or is it all fine in moderation? And it's not just about what we eat, is it? It's about how we eat as well, so we're told. Is breakfast the most important meal of the day, or is it something we should avoid to prolong an overnight fast? What about calories? They must be important if they're on menus and food labels. The answer is, it became complicated when it became clear that we as individuals respond differently to what and how we eat. One person's healthy can quite literally be another person's unhealthy. It's made more complicated by the complete lack of consensus and contradictory health messaging that we receive. But it became scary and frustrating when we realize that the stakes are incredibly high, that what and how we eat determines our risks for developing chronic diseases. Now, chronic diseases are the global killer of our time. Here in the UK, it's Alzheimer's, dementia, cardiovascular disease. And the thing about chronic disease is that when we have one, our risk of developing another increases, and so begins an unfortunate spiral towards ill health. Now, the other thing about chronic disease is that they're incurable, and so prevention is the best tool that we have. Now, I don't come to you today as a smug nutritionist who has it all sorted. Absolutely not. I don't. If I go by what Instagram tells me I should be doing as a nutritionist, I fail. And as a mother, and as anything else, for that matter. But I'm not vegan. I'm not anti-sugar. I enjoy a glass of wine. I am a full-time working mother to 3 wonderfully imperfect children, and I'm doing what I can, for now. So why am I here? I'm here because we can draw on 3 areas of science that are exploding with hope. Areas that are quite literally redefining what it means to be healthy. And we can apply these principles to our daily life and turn scientific discovery into common knowledge, and better still, common practice. The problem is that we're being set up to fail. In the 1920s, scientists suspected a link between lung cancer and smoking. This link was confirmed in the 1950s, but it wasn't until the 1990s that tobacco companies conceded the point, having spent the last 40 years investing heavily in the no-proof argument. And it wasn't until 2007, where here in the UK, the government took steps to ban smoking inside in public places. So we can see that when science makes discoveries that contradict the commercial interests of big companies, battles have to be fought. This takes time. And unfortunately for us, there can be a significant human cost involved. So parallels can be drawn with what's happening in the world of nutritional science and big food. Currently in the UK, 60% of our diets are made up of ultra-processed foods. And these are foods where a lot of the nutritional components have been lost and replaced with things like stabilisers, emulsifiers, artificial colourings, artificial flavours, added sugar, salt, trans fats. This makes them highly palatable and shelf-stable, but unfortunately for us, they're associated with negative health consequences like depression, obesity, hyperactivity, all-cause mortality. And, unfortunately for us again, there are very intelligent psychologists and really well-funded marketing teams whose priority is not our health. Their priority is to peddle as much of this nutrient-poor food to unsuspecting children and time-poor parents. So my gosh, how depressing. What can we do? How can we avoid chronic disease when I've just told you there's nothing we can do about it? Well, these 3 principles of science, which I am so excited to share with you today. Principle 1, we need to feed our brains. The healthy human brain is made up of 60% fat, and it needs omega-3 fatty acids to support itself. Yet we live in a world that demonizes fat. Eating fat will make us fat. So we need to prioritize and identify and normalize healthful fats. And these are found in things like oily fish, sardines, mackerel, salmon, herring. Might be sardines on toast for breakfast, smoked mackerel pate for lunch. We also get these fatty acids from nuts and seeds, so chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts. So it might be swapping a white bread for a multi-seeded one. Might be throwing in a lump of nut butter into a smoothie. It might be as simple as having a bag of mixed nuts that sits on the desk at work, and that becomes the afternoon snack. Those of us who are able to prioritize and normalize these healthful fats into the diet will be taking great steps in preventative healthcare and protecting the brain. Principle 2, feed the gut bugs. We don't just eat for ourselves. We eat to support 1 trillion other microorganisms that live within our gut, and they need to be nourished and nurtured every day. Our gut bugs make energy. They make neurotransmitters, which support positive mental health. They make nutrients we can't get from diet and that we can't make ourselves. They regulate the immune system. Good bugs crowd out the bad bugs. They're linked to almost every aspect of human health. And in fact, in the last 5 years, of all the papers published on the microbiome, 90% of them have been published in the last 5 years alone. So this is current. This is information we need now. How do we do it? Prebiotic fiber and plant compounds called polyphenols. So for this, we look to colourful fruit and vegetables as much as possible. Pulses, like beans, chickpeas, lentils. Whole grains, like brown rice and buckwheat. Herbs and spices count too. It's also about getting comfortable with things like fermented foods, which gives us our probiotic component. So this is kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, kombucha. So instead of a bolognese on regular pasta, it might be a bolognese on a whole grain pasta. Better still, a base of roasted mixed veg. Better still, dollop of kimchi on the side. Whatever we can do in this field matters. Now I can hear the parents in the room. Oh, just get more vegetables into my children's diet. Easy. How do we do it? Well, it's true to say, and it's important to note, that we are not all in the same boat on this one. But for some children, autonomy is rewarded. How many times can you go into a shop and say to a child, you can have anything you want? You sort of can in a grocery shop. Allow a child to pick something, take it to the counter, carry it home, wash it, chop it, decide what to do with it. They might just eat it. For others, it's about getting them when they're hungry. And that could be as simple as having a plate of vegetables and a bowl of hummus on the table when they get home from school. Less questions are asked when they're hungry. And if a child has rejected the same thing over and over again, is it worth introducing it to them again? The science says yes. And we as parents are taking steps to normalize colour and diversity in the diet. And in their formative years, that matters. Principle 3, we need to manage blood sugar levels. Our bodies are really good at making sure we have the right amount of glucose in our blood. And a lot of complex physiology is involved in getting this process right. Unfortunately, our diets are often carbohydrate heavy, and they involve lots of snacking. And this can put a strain on this system. So we eat in a way that sends our blood sugar levels soaring really high, only to come crashing down a short while later, and then have to be readjusted back up to normal. And this takes energy. So what can we do? This is about protein at every eating event. Definitely snacks, and especially breakfast. Baked beans on toast, an omelette, a boiled egg, a fried egg. Chia jam. It's about swapping a sugary snack for a savoury one, like a lump of cheese. And if a brownie's on the menu, it's about having it as a dessert, rather than as a snack on its own. And if there's a carbohydrate lunch, a 10-minute walk afterwards has been shown to be helpful. These steps might sound insignificant, nitpicky even. Do they really matter? But this is preventative healthcare in practice. The hundreds of decisions that we make every day, they matter. And they will all add up and play a role in whether we will or will not be able to protect ourselves from the chronic disease epidemic that lies before us. How do I know it's going to work? Well, what works in the long term serves us well in the short term as well. I'm lucky enough to work in clinical practice. I see people improve their energy levels, manage chronic pain. I see children go from surviving to thriving. And what about all the complexity? What about all those unanswered questions? Well, it's true that a lot of this is not true for everyone, but one thing absolutely is. Eat real food, food that nourishes the brain, that nurtures the gut bugs, and that regulates blood sugar levels. So what's for dinner tonight? Well, what can we be doing today? Awareness is the first step. The hundreds of decisions that we make every day matter, and we can start to be aware of what they are. We all have different starting points based on our own capacities for change. And they are unique to us based on the hands that we have been dealt. But one thing is true. We can start to reclaim what we normalize. We decide what we normalize. And start making that drawing on these areas of science to make choices that are investments in our future. Food is not the enemy. Food is our secret weapon. And it's the best tool that we have to reclaim control of our future health. Thank you.